What is going on? It is Dr. Remy LeBeau, and I'm coming at you once again from the X-Lair to provide you my deep and so insightful thoughts into the absolutely spectacular latest episode of X-Men 97, Season 1. This was Episode 9, Tolerance is Extinction, Part 2 of 3. I have a fatal attraction to this whole season, and certainly to this episode. There's a lot to unpack here, people. A lot going on. There's so much going on. There's so much going on. It's like I want to stop this at every single frame and like provide a whole dissertation on every single little thing that went on in this episode and in this show. My God. First of all, we only have one episode left. Only one episode left. That totally sucks. Like, that means that we have to wait who knows how long for the next season to arrive. I mean, it's good. It's good for us to take a moment to reflect and let this sort of reverberate throughout the zeitgeist and let it sink its teeth into everyone. And finally, bring the X-Men back into the prominence that they deserve to be in, because my God, do they deserve it. Of course, we have, Deadpool and Wolverine coming out very soon. Hopefully it'll be a very X-centric film, and there'll be a lot of really excellent moments in that. We'll see about that. That's not what we're here to talk about, but believe me, we will be talking about that. Oh, yes. Okay, anyway, what an episode, huh? What an episode. Okay, so, I mean, just like the idea that we got to see all the X-Men in the Chris Claremont giant-size X-Men era costumes is beyond phenomenal, right? Like, who expected that, Like, why would that happen? Because Bo DeMaio wanted it to happen, and everybody else involved, of course. That's why. And we got it, and it was so good. And we saw Rogue in the green and the white outfit. We saw Cable. I love that there's like an emphasis on like the looks, It's like, it's so good because like, I mean, we're talking about like decades and decades of stories and designs and all sorts of things that are all fair game for the show. And like, we're no longer in this era in the comics, and like, it makes sense to constantly evolve things and change them and make them reflect a more modern era. Love every second of it. I've had this like fleeting thought where it's like, I have a feeling they're going to do Age of Apocalypse, like a whole season of Age of Apocalypse. And then when things come back to normal, like they will be in the present day. Like there'll be like a temporal shift, and like they'll be in the present day. They'll be like in, 2027 or whenever it is that we get that. That's just my thought on this. 'Cause like there's ways to kind of trick the reality of a show to sort of adhere to the present, but also, be honorable to what's happened in the past. Because obviously in the past, like we had, Magneto born into the Holocaust, and like that is an inherent part of his DNA as a character, and like we need to maintain that. Like that has to be a part of who he is forever. Because I mean, he was right, so it's like, if he's right, then you got to be right when you're presenting Magneto, who is right. Magneto is right. Magneto not was right. Magneto is right. But I've had this shirt for a very long time. I've worn it. Nobody's ever commented on it, but I have a feeling that if I wear it now, people will be saying things like, I'm seeing younger people like mentioning X-Men to me. Like, I tutor kids online. A couple have mentioned X-Men. When I was out, like I'm wearing like this X-Men backpack, and someone's like, is that an X-Men 97 backpack? I'm like, maybe. It's like, it's happening. It's happening. The young people are starting to care about the X-Men. This is glorious. Beyond glorious. It's such a wonderful moment for an X-fan like myself, who is old and has been around enough to watch the rise and fall of the IP that I've talked about at length in the past. So I'm not going to get into that now, but let's talk about this episode, huh? All right. So a lot. Okay. So first of all, like Magneto experienced Genosha. survived, was tied up, incapable of using his powers or speaking, and basically the little bitch of Bastion, while Bastion like shaved him or whatever. Then he kept him in his underwear, like on this X. Like, imagine, like, this is a man who's gone through the Holocaust, right? Then everything that's happened to him as a result of being a mutant. This evolution of his experience led to Genosha. You know, first inheriting the school, then Genosha, and then like that crippling fall of the mutants, right, at Genosha. So like, all of this is inside of this man. He was not going to deal with this well, no matter what happened. But on top of what happened, like, it was like this boiling pot about to burst open that couldn't. And of course, the minute it happened, the minute he could let go, he did. And like, what he did to Earth is like exactly what I would expect for Magneto to do to Earth. So many great moments in this episode, like, where he anyway, we'll talk about that, of course. But it's like, of course he's going to behave the way he did. And I love that there was like, you know, commentary on like the justification for what he did. Like, it's like, you know, like, because when President Kelly's talking with Xavier, like, Xavier's like, hey, like, time and time again, like, his fears have been proven to be valid. And like, humanity has proven to do the things that he expected them to do, you know? Like, they've let him down. So of course Magneto is going to do the things that he's done, be the person he is, and ultimately do something that I still can't believe. Even though I foresaw it, I saw it happening, right? Like, in the weeks leading up to this, like, I didn't want it to happen, but I knew it could happen. The extraction of the adamantium from Wolverine's body. I didn't expect that to... I mean, I did expect it to happen, but like, for it to actually happen is beyond shocking and jarring, right? It's just like, it's a lot. It's a lot to process. It's a lot... Like, just the reality of it is like, holy mother of all that is holy in Marvel and X-Men lore. Like, it's happening, and it happened, and it cuts off right when it happens. And on top of that, like, it's bloody. Because, like, somebody showed panels from the comic when this happened. X-Men 25, Fatal Attractions. Xavier, like, says to him, for the love of God, Magnus, don't do this. This is exactly what Xavier said in the show, right before Magneto does it. And then in the comic, when it happens, it's like the blood is like black. Because like back then it was like the Comics Code Authority, like, was like kind of like the rating board that oversaw like the morality of comics because of a bunch of stupid things. And like, you know, showing blood in Marvel was like taboo, and it was like basically like banned. So this was even more gruesome than that, which I'm very thankful for, because like, it's gotta be, man. It's gotta be raw, it's gotta be bold, and it was. And like, when even when fucking Wolverine fucking guts Magneto, he doesn't guts him, he gets him probably like around this area. That was bloody. And it was beyond like jarring and shocking. I was just like, oh, like, okay. Those are the final episodes of the season, of the episode. Let's go to the earlier episode parts of the episode. So first of all, the opening, we had Storm in her new costume, her old new costume, right? Which is so cool. Like, that's exactly what I wanted to happen, and that is exactly what we saw. I love the love and care they're putting into the opening. It's so wonderful. I heard that they had conducted like various versions of the intro as well. So that's so cool. They love this so much, the people that are doing this, and like, we're kin, you know, like, we're kin. Like, I feel the love, and like, hopefully, I mean, they feel the love from the fans, including myself, of course, because like, I mean, my God, how can we not love what is being presented to us? It's such the gift the thing that we've been waiting for so long, and it's finally happening, and it's just like, it's so wonderful. Anyway, so we start at the mansion, right? Like, Xavier's waking up, it's a disaster, and just things have fallen apart, and so it turns out that Jubilee and Berto were obviously let go by the Sentinels that were dismantled, that were disabled when the electromagnetic storm, let's call it, occurred. And so they were freed. So we see that they're being chased now by the Friends of Humanity and other people that are pissed that mutants have done this to them or whatever. And then we get that wonderful moment where Storm and Ford show up. And Storm comes down, scares everybody away with her magnificence. And then they have this wonderful reunion, and Jubilee is just bawling, and it's so lovely, Man, so many great moments. It's there's so much that went, this episode could have been 2 hours. It didn't need to be, but it could have been. They could have taken that much time and care with every moment, because there were a lot of really important moments that occurred. Anyway, so another important moment was, of course, the reunion of Scott with Xavier, and this is a great conversation that they're having. First of all, Jean's look, we've got 12 hours before the Earth basically dies, because apparently Magneto screwed up the magnetic field of the Earth. It wasn't just this electromagnetic pulse that he sent through. He actually potentially destroyed the ability of Earth to be a viable planet for humans to live on, because the iron core spins, that creates a magnetic field, and that shields the Earth from all the radiation that comes from space. If that stops, the Earth is doomed. So it appears that Magneto might have affected that. Jean appears to know that. It's fine that we don't know how. I don't need to know. But there's this great moment of they're having a conversation. Jean, Cyclops, and Storm, and at the same time, so Jean, Cyclops, and Professor X. So let me see. Let me see if I can get to it. This one here. Okay, so we'll just leave it there. So it's just a wonder. It's an interesting situation because I don't know. You kind of feel like there would be sort of a sense of relief that Xavier's back, but Cyclops, he's so full of anger, he can't control himself. He's mad at Xavier, and he's you left us Magneto, But I feel it's a lot is being ignored, what about Genosha, Magneto's not just acting out of just vile hatred of humanity, he's reacting to something very traumatic, right? So, but I get it, everybody's dealing with it in their own way. Anyway, so great conversation here. It establishes that Cyclops is pissed at Xavier, and Xavier's this is my fault, blame me, whatever. It's very complicated, and I love how complicated it is. The relationships, everything that goes on until the action happens is it's profound, It's something that matters, and it just does a good job, even though there isn't a lot of it because there's so much going on in terms of the plot. It does do a lot to really kind of solidify these characters as being three-dimensional, more than just these superpowered beings, which is wonderful. Some of them are vulnerable, some of them are broken, some of them are super strong, There's just, it's a lot, and it's being handled, even if it's just subtly, it's being handled, and I love that that's the case. Okay, so, so as they're having the conversation, then Rogue wakes up, right? So Rogue has an interesting arc. Rogue is pissed. She's hurt. She finds out that Magneto's alive, Um, she realizes what she's done with Trask, but Kurt assuages her concerns about that. But it's clear like she's screwed up, and when she comes out, she doesn't come out in her normal costume. Like she comes out in another costume, which is more sort of evocative of like her earlier days, but also like her later days. Like it's an evolution of her costume. We got this great evolution of her costume as well, which I was very happy about. All right, so anyway, so we get this lovely moment, and then everybody's like together, like there's the reunion with Jean, like and Storm, which was so lovely, and like Storm very explicitly says that Forge got her powers back. Like Forge got her powers back. Like that machine worked, but then she had like this sort of like psychological barriers to overcome herself as well, and she finally did, and then her powers reemerged. But Forge did it, so like Forge is welcome back. Forge is obviously knows Henry McCoy. I love that there's like a history there, and like Forge is in his X-Men costume, which is really cool. And then Roberto's in his New Mutants costume, which is really cool. Cable's all up in the mix, and there was like a nice moment with Cable. I think maybe it happens right after this with Cyclops, where they're just sort of trying to figure out the family dynamic thing. Yeah, that happens when they're about to go in separate directions, because I guess here they figure out they're going to go in two separate teams, and the teams are the blue team and the gold team. The blue team and the gold team. I was like, blue team, gold team. That's the fucking, that's 90s. That's when you had two teams, and they were the gold and the blue, and it's just like all these little things like being dropped here and there. It's just like so satisfying for anyone who's been a fan of this stuff forever. Like to see all of these elements kind of incorporated into this and in such a magnificent manner is beyond satisfying, as I'm sure you already know. And if you don't know, now you know. All right. So like they're trying to figure out, okay, so this is when we also find out that Xavier knows Bastion. Like he thought that Bastion might have been a mutant. His mom, he was potentially going to recruit him as a kid because he found out that he could talk to machines and like, which they're calling like a technopathy or something. So he's a technopath, but obviously he's a personification of a Sentinel, Nimrod. But nonetheless, like interesting sort of backstory there that we couldn't have gotten without Xavier. Great, fantastic. Really kind of makes Bastion more important than he had ever been. But really, he had not been important until One Man's Worth, when Nimrod goes back in time. Because like going back in time is ultimately what led to Bastion's creation. So, and that didn't happen until later. So it's like, it's weird when you're thinking about time travel, but it didn't happen until later in the reality of this show, right? It happened in the 4th season. So anyway, all right. So yeah. So yeah, a lot of discussion. You see, Rogue is like, Rogue ain't happy, Rogue can see that. Well, first of all, she's happy that Magneto's alive, but she can see what's happening here. Like they want to go after Magneto, and like in her mind, she doesn't think of Magneto as a villain, and especially after what happened on Genosha. And this is like, and she had basically chosen Magneto, sort of, right before like she didn't choose him. It's a very complicated situation in episode 5. Remember it. R.I.P. Gambit, huh? Anyway, so Rogue is just like, what am I like? Like I can't let these people like kill like Magneto, but at the same time, she's like, this is my family. I love that that Storm was basically like really kind of bringing home like that family ethos of like, it's not about all these big forces. It's just about it's about our connection, And like that is our biggest strength. Even though she did leave, when she lost her powers, but we won't talk about that. But that was mentioned. I believe it was mentioned by Rogue. Oh yeah, when Rogue is about to leave the X-Men, like like Storm's like, you're gonna leave your family, and Rogue's like, you left. It's like, yeah, Storm, you left, but she had to go find her powers. She never powers. Like, she had to go figure some stuff out. Like, I totally get why Storm left. Rogue is not thinking clearly, obviously. Like, I mean, why would she? She's all fucked up. Like, she saw the devastation in Genosha. She lost Remy. Like, this is not a joke for her at all. Anyway, so they're figuring out their plan, right? And then, you know, like, there's a lot of important discussion. There's this wonderful moment where, you know, Hank and Ford are working together to enhance this device that was created to nullify the Phoenix when Jean had it. And, you know, they get to the point where they're like, well, maybe we can just shut off his power altogether. And Storm was like, nobody's shutting off nothing. And then they're like, okay, well, maybe we won't do that. Because, you know, she just had her powers taken away. Hello, great moment. Love it. And let me see. And then, my friends, then we get this freaking fantastic moment. Look at that face, man. That's a woman scorned, okay? Do not F with this woman. Magneto shows up in Asteroid M. So we see at the beginning, like, Magneto's back in his costume, his original costume. He's got the helmet on, right? Because he knows he has to protect himself from Xavier. And he raises Asteroid M from the ocean. If you don't know, in season 4, there were a couple episodes where, I think it was called Sanctuary, parts 1 and 2, where, you know, Magneto has created a sanctuary on an asteroid in space, and things go awry. Eventually, the asteroid crashes to Earth or whatever. But, I mean, obviously, it's this enormous, like, base. And so Magneto was able to preserve it and raise it from the ocean. And so Asteroid M is back, right? And he brings it down here. Like, first of all, like, there's this really great exchange between these two, right? Where, you know, they're both kind of dealing with their grief. Professor's doing the best he can, but she is also kind of blaming him a bit, which is a really interesting turn given, you know, the last time they'd been together was when he was, like, sick and he was being taken away. And, you know, there was, like, a really strong connection that had been established. But I mean, just Rogue can't get past her hurt, man. She is broken right now. And, like, I totally get where she's coming from here. At the same time, they have to deal with something beyond magnificent, which is having our Lord and Master Magneto come back, bring Asteroid M. Let me get a nice frame here. Come on. There we go. Beautiful. This is spectacular. Like, Xavier's wheel, Magneto, Asteroid M in the background. This is a wonderful moment because we have not seen Magneto process Genosha. You know, we didn't see it. We didn't hear it, but we heard it here. And, like, and I love how, like, he's, like, Magneto is basically like, you left Earth for your Shi'ar bird queen, and, like, you left this to me, and, like, this, your dream led to this. You know, and Xavier's just like, I mean, obviously he feels remorseful. Like, he is hurt as well, obviously. But he also can't let Magneto, like, just destroy everything. So, anyway, wonderful, wonderful exchange. The Magneto moment of where he's talking about Leech and, like, how I had promised, you know, this child, you know, safety. And then I watched as his eyes were evaporated in his head. I was just like, I need to take a break here. It's like, this is a lot. This is a lot to fucking process, goddammit. But it just so profound, such impactful moments, such a gravitas and like an emotional weight to everything that's happening. It's so good. So they're gonna go after Magneto, but Magneto comes to them, and then Magneto, of course, makes the offer, like, you can join me. And who joins him? Rogue, of course. I love that. And who else? Berto. I mean, he very explicitly says, like, my mom had me collared. Like, there's nothing for me here. And then Jubilee's like, what about me? And he's like, eh. It's like, we had our moments, you know. But you're just a side piece. Magneto's my main squeeze. Anyway, so they join Magneto. We have these really great moments with all of the mutants. And did we leave already? Did we leave yet? No, come on. I want. Oh, yes. This is what I was looking for. Love this. Look at this. This is so cool. We see Roberto Sunspot as Sunspot. Really cool. We see Rogue in her dope ass like green and white costume. Love that costume. It's so cool. And of course, just like the meaning of all this. And then he's like, Magneto's like, the door's open and like your invitation's open. Any of you can come at any time. So anyway, so he's gonna do his thing, but at the same time, like Professor X knows where this is gonna lead, and like he can't allow it to just kind of play out without having any intervention. And like, I get it, but I wish things had gone differently. I really wish that like. I just loved Magneto being, you know, with the X-Men and kind of working for Xavier's dream, and like, I hate that there's conflict again. But I mean, come on, like we need conflict, I guess. I mean, there's other things that could bring conflict, and there will be. We have a lot. There's a lot coming. There's a lot coming. All right, so. Oh, so there is a mention by Xavier that Moira is dead, right? Interesting, right? Very interesting. That's all I'm going to say about that. Moira McTaggart, the mutant who can reset reality, is dead. I doubt it. But we'll talk. I'm sure it'll be addressed eventually. I understand that in the show that has not been a thing. But nonetheless, like, it is a thing now. And therefore, it has to be a thing here. And I'm sure they acknowledge it, but they can't deal with it because their focus is on the things that they're focusing on here. These are very 90s storylines. There's a lot of road to be paved between now and Krakoa. But I have a feeling we're going to eventually get to Krakoa. I feel like we're going to go through House of M at one point. We're going to have Decimation, where the Scarlet Witch basically turns off most mutants' powers. That's going to happen. And then we're going to have, you know, the reemergence of mutants via the Messiah complex. It's like this whole trilogy where this mutant was introduced, Hope. Anyway, like all that's going to play out, and eventually we're going to get to the present because there's a lot of story to tell, and like, I mean, the show is doing really well, so like they're going to keep going. So you have to assume that they're eventually going to get to Krakoa. Maybe sooner than later. We'll see. I don't know. Anyway, so we get this really great father-son moment. This is when they talk about Jean and like how it's complicated because Nathan's like, that's not your mom, but that's not my mom. But like, she really is his mom, you know, because like he didn't really know Madeline. Like, Jean is Madeline. So anyway, it's complicated. They acknowledge it. And then this is where Cyclops gives Cable the new costume. And they make that really great reference to X-Men 1, the very first X-Men movie that came out in 2000, where Wolverine is going to put on the black costume, and somebody's like, what did you expect, yellow leather? Oh, no, Cyclops tells him, what did you expect, yellow leather? Well, here, Cyclops is basically saying, what did you expect, black leather? No, yellow spandex is what Cyclops said in the movie. Black leather is what he said here, which is what they wore in that movie. It's a great callback. I love it. Fantastic. Anyway, so they're on Muir Island, right? Moira McTaggart's former base. Banshee's dead. Moira's dead. Like, I kind of expected Moira to show up, but no, she's gone. Or is she? We'll see. Anyway, so the teams are going to split up, right? Gold and blue. Like, that's the plan. And of course, here is where they get their original costumes, which I really like. That, first of all, the costumes are on display, and second of all, like, they decide to wear them. I think it's really spectacular. And we finally get Wolverine in the brown costume. Wolverine is brown costume, people. Wolverine is brown costume. I mean, that's big time. That's big. Okay, so so everybody's like, okay, oh, and then this is like, Xavier trying to convince the president, blah, 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 that everything's fine. And then we get this lovely moment where, Jean and Scott are separating. Now, beyond beautiful. Now, let's talk about something. We've seen the Phoenix quite a bit in the trailers. I'm not the trailers. The opening sequence for the show. There's been a lot of mention about the Phoenix. What it appears happens at the end of this episode is that Cable takes out Jean. I predict, this is my prediction, we're seeing the Phoenix next week. Like, it's going to reemerge. It's going to be established that the Phoenix wasn't just an entity that possessed Jean. Like, she has a permanent connection to it. Like, there is a connection to the Phoenix that transcends, like, everything that's ever happened on the show. And we're going to see the Phoenix. And I think that is going to be what turns the tide against Bastion. Because apparently, from what we've seen, like, Bastion has basically won. Like, Storm's taken out, Forge is taken out, Morph is taken out, and then, of course, Sinister is controlling Cable. Like, things look dire. What's going to turn the tide? Jean's dying? Jean's the Phoenix, ostensibly, in the greater lore. So, I don't know. I have a feeling we're going to see Jean as Phoenix again, which is really spectacular. But let's wait till we get there. Let's wait till we get there, huh? Anyway. Okay, so, touching as shit moment, right? Like, one team goes one direction, the other team goes the other direction. Very ominous, right? Maybe Jean actually does die. Because Jean's died a lot in the comics. And there was, in Grant Morrison's storyline, which is where E4 Extinction happened, which is what episode 5 was based on, in that run, Jean dies again. This was like in the early 2000s, and she was not resurrected until 2019. She was gone for a very long time. And now she's back, by the way, and it's spectacular. But like, they could kill her and she could be dead for a while. And this is how Emma Frost comes back into the picture. Maybe she becomes part of the team and becomes, the Emma Frost that we know and love from the comics. Like, a lot of things could happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, so the teams split up. One team goes to attack Bastion. And Bastion has, of course, an army of Sentinels ready. Like, he's powering them. He's controlling them. And there's a plan to sort of take him out. The idea is that they're going to neutralize Bastion, and by doing so, that they're gonna give control of the Prime Sentinels back to the humans who have been possessed by them, because there's a lot of concern about, like, if they convince Magneto to fix the electromagnetic spectrum, that those Prime Sentinels will reemerge, and then that will be a threat they won't be able to overcome. So the idea is that they're going to neutralize Bastion. There's this great moment where Aurora's like, you guys go attack Bastion, and we will take care of the Sentinels up here. Oh my God, this is so beautiful. So, man. When Aurora says to Jean, like, I thought of you while I was gone, and how you reemerged from your darkness, and, like, were reborn a Phoenix, and then I love, and then Storm says something like, we're going to win. It's not because we're powerful and because we're mutants and because of one man's dream, but because we believe in each other. Just like, you're right, Storm. Yeah, that's why you're gonna win. Beautiful, beyond beautiful. And then there was this really great line, something about like weather the storm, and then he's like, I forget what the line is, but it's just this beautiful like line where Rogue's like, Storm to Jean is like, weather the storm, and then Jean to Storm is like, weather the storm, sister, and then Aurora's like, mind the weather or something. I don't know. It was just so good. Anyway, all right. So the team gets down to the bottom, to fight the Sentinels, and we have this really fantastic sequence where Morph turns into the Hulk and starts wrecking shop with the Sentinels. I mean, oh, this is hilarious. Like, he, as the Hulk, throws the Sentinel through this diner sign, which is DeMaio's Diner. That's Bo DeMaio. That's the showrunner. That's his last name. I thought that was an excellent little Easter egg there. So just Morph is really kind of demonstrating like his value. You know, he's not just like, he's done it a lot this season. I like that we haven't really gone into him as a character too much, because like you can't deal with everybody, and we've had enough of his plight throughout the prior show. But I like how we're seeing like how powerful he is, which is fantastic, because like that's what we need to see. Anyway, so as they're fighting, Sinister and Jean start going at it. So, give me one. Come on, give me a frame. Give me a good Jean and Sinister frame. Come on. Oh, I love that moment where she's like realizing that he's behind her, or like she's like, oh, I'm not afraid of you. Come on, where are you? Where are you? We'll take this. This moment is, look, there's so many good moments in this episode, in this whole series, really. But like, Jean versus Sinister. Like, Jean has always been this kind of weak person who just easily gets taken and whatnot. And in this show, like, they've totally fixed that. And they've made her into the powerhouse that she is. And she goes up against Sinister, but Sinister reveals himself to be like this powerhouse, right? Like he's figured out how to like manipulate his matter to almost be like this apparition that can move around as he was, like a shadow. They showed it in the opening sequence of the show, but you never, like we'd never seen him do that before, so I didn't really think that that's was something that he would be doing, but we saw him do it here. It was very good. And Jean is like basically like, dude, you're no match for me. Even though Sinister was like, I got your number, kid. And Sinister also says something interesting where it's like, I know where you end and Madeline begins. Like, don't you want to know, whatever? And Jean's like, I am Madeline. Madeline's fighting with me. I'm gonna take you down. And she, just right when she's about to take him down, Sinister reveals his cards. The thing he wanted from Bastion was to have Cable brought to him. And he got Cable. Because he created Cable, right? And he infected him with the techno-organic virus. So he was able to take control of Cable. And then that's when Cable started going off and attacking Jean, right? So there's that whole thing happening. At the same time, we get the other X-Men going to Asteroid M, right? Rogue and Berto, like, don't know where they are. It's Xavier, Jubilee, Wolverine, and Nightcrawler. And then, you know, like, they've teleported out of the Blackbird, and while Rogue and Sunspot are looking for, we see that Magneto is on a Sentinel throne. Look at this. Look at this. That's so cool. He's on a Sentinel throne. He made himself a throne of Sentinels. We've seen it a bunch in statues, but we've never really seen that beyond that. It's always been sort of this really cool thing of like, because like a lot of X-Men statues that have come out over the last like 20 years, like some of them had Sentinel bases. And I'm trying to see if I have any readily available. I do not have any readily available. Get rid of this. So we've never seen this before, but clearly, like my theory is that the show designers, the showrunner, and everyone else involved, like saw these images and was like, "That's uber cool. That's what we need," and they gave it to us. So Magneto is on a throne, and we got this really great battle between Rogue, Wolverine. Oh, Cyclops is there too, of course. And Sunspot, and then, just great battle, lots of things happening, and like Xavier wants to take Magneto out, but like Cyclops is like concerned because like he knows that Jean and the rest of them are like fighting Bastion, and like he doesn't want them to. He wants them to nullify Bastion before they reignite the Prime Sentinels, because then that could be the end of them, and so Cyclops is a bit torn here, and that's going to lead to a very key moment. So at the same time, we go back to Earth. And then this is Morph, right? He's trying to trick Bastion. They're trying to put that thing on Bastion to stop him from having control over the Prime Sentinels. And it's a really great moment. Fighting Beast, like showing his mettle. Morph showing his mettle. Everybody's doing so great. At the same time, Jean is being overwhelmed by Cable. And, while that's happening on Asteroid M, like, they're about to take down Magneto. So Wolverine attacks Magneto. He takes off his helmet. Xavier takes control of him. So it's like, okay, so oh yeah, at the same time, you've got Storm and Forge are neutralized. We don't know if they're going to survive. They're going to survive, but we don't know it. Things are dire. This is like the middle of a 3-act thing that's happening, right? The last act is the final episode. So everything has to be hopeless and dire and whatnot at the end of this episode, of course. So Xavier takes control of Magneto. At the same time, Cyclops becomes aware of what's happening with Jean, and because of that, and like basically like he's like we saw at the beginning of this episode, like he's upset with Xavier, and he's like basically like lost faith in him. So it makes perfect sense that like he would lose faith in the decision he's making here to nullify Magneto, and he optically blasts Xavier to stop him from whatever he's doing in Magneto's mind. I'm assuming he's about to turn Magneto off, which is probably what's going to happen next episode. We'll see. So Cyclops nullifies him, and that frees Magneto, and then that is when things go bad. They go very bad. This is the point of no return, like when Magneto crosses this line, like it takes a while for things for there to be like a redemption, right? Like it takes a long time. So like that's where we're at. It is what it is. That's all I'm saying. Right here. That's all I'm saying. So Magneto, Magneto neutralizes Xavier, puts the helmet on him. Magneto's about to wreck shop. What happens? We all know what happens. The claws, the blood. And then Magneto's like, I'm so glad that our rivalry is finally over. Like, the minute Wolverine crossed the line of like just stabbing him, that basically, like, all the rules were no longer at play. Like, they no longer had to have restraint, and that's when we get this moment, man. Oh man. Oh shite. And then it ends, man. And then it ends. And we only have a week to wait. But like, the thing is this, like, we have a week to wait, but then there's nothing after that, which is so sad. I mean, there is a Deadpool and Wolverine though, so that could be like really spectacular. And you know, they are animating the second season, so it might not be that long before we get it, but it will definitely be until next year. I mean, let's be honest. But nonetheless, like, I'm going to be watching this whole season quite a bit, and it's going to be spectaculoso. Blood, people. Blood. Blood. Okay, so this is the thing. Gambit dead. Wolverine without his adamantium. What happens in the comics? Spoilers for what happens in the comics may not be what happens in this. Apocalypse brings Gambit back as, you know, he has his 4 horsemen. Gambit is death. He puts the adamantium back into Wolverine, and Wolverine becomes, I believe, war, because it's not penance and it's not famine. So it's got to be war. I believe he becomes war. So he also becomes a horseman of apocalypse. So I kind of see that happening. At the same time, I feel like Onslaught is a thing. So anyway, next week I'll talk all about like what I think is going to happen. What I think is going to happen next week: Jean Phoenix, baby. Goodbye Bastion. Goodbye Sentinels. At the same time, Magneto gets his mind turned off, which is going to lead to Onslaught. It's so good, but it's also so heart-wrenching. I don't know. There's so many, and at the same time, like, well, Wolverine's in his brown and his brown costume, and Rogue is in her white and green costume, and like Storm is in her costume, and like Jean's in her old costume, and like Cyclops is in his old costume. It's like on top of everything else, like, everything looks so fantastic. It's wonderful. Anyway, folks, that is my 48-minute gush session about this episode. I loved it, and I'm sure you did as well. Thank you so much for continuously checking out my content, being so loyal. I appreciate it. I promise to bring more of the fun and enthusiasm and the love of this whole thing, as well as some other things that, you know, often fall into my purview. I hope everybody's doing as well as they possibly can. Next week we will reconvene for one more episode before this ends. But it will be glorious. Beyond glorious. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. Click the like button, drop a comment, click on that bell, do all the things that would make, you know, our connection stronger. And yeah, I want to be very clear about this. If you're presented with an option to put a check in the box, you better not put that check in the box. You better put an X in the box. Because ain't nobody checking me. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.